All right. It is 6:02 p.m. on Monday, August 5th, 6 p.m. I'm officially calling this meeting to order at 6:02. As we do typically for meetings, if you don't mind, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. We won't do the moment of silence as we normally do in regular meetings. We'll save that for regular meetings. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Olivia, can you please do a quick roll call?
Yes. Trustee Shetting?
Aye.
Trustee Sauer?
Present here.
Trustee Alter?
Yep.
Trustee Hanselman?
Here.
Deputy Mayor Bobby Ryan?
Here.
Mayor Rob Allen.
I am present. So, we called this meeting to order, or we set this meeting in motion, rather, on Friday of last week to get a chance for the board to be able to comment publicly on what's going on and for the chance for the community to get an idea of what we're looking into doing. This meeting is going to be pretty basic. I'm going to try to limit my talking about each of the various projects, but I'm going to do a brief introduction on the New York Forward Grant process and timeline, nothing really huge. Proposed project overview, and then I'll just go through each of the 5 projects that the village is putting forward, and the 6th project, which is a Hoosick Rising project with the village as a partner alongside with it. Board, I want to offer this question to you. Do you want to wait for public comments at the end? Comments go as we go? Do you guys want to hear each site? How do you want to run this?
I think it should be as we go.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree.
Fine with that.
I'm fine with that. I didn't want to be too formal and stuffy. I know that a couple of us and some employees got to review the Murphy building, so if you guys wanted to discuss that tonight, we can certainly start with that, or we can do that later. I'm flexible with whatever you guys want to do, and then we'll just see if there's any other additional items we want to bring up.
Well, I would say start with it because it impacts the proposal that
Certainly.
has to do with the building here.
Certainly. So just as a quick preview, one of the items that we're proposing is improving the municipal building by giving us more structure and more space here. One of the other possibilities was trying to pursue the county-owned Murphy building, which is no longer being operated as a senior center and everything else. So that's moved outside the village to the new location, albeit successfully. So, Doug, if you don't mind, since I was not there and you were there, I will pass it over to you.
You know, Deb and I toured it with Mark, Kenny, and Matt Brownell, who showed us the building. It looked a lot larger than it did when we went through it before.
Oh, and Harold. Yes, and Harold.
And Harold.
Harold McClellan.
Yeah.
Yes.
It, as Mark said, it's the bones of it's good.
Yeah, the structure is good.
Structure is good. Needs a new roof. Needs the south side wall replaced.
Inside wall.
Inside, on the inside. Has plumbing needs, has a new heating system, and some electrical needs. I think that from what we could gather from some fast price estimates, if you're going to do a gut rehab with everything, it'd be 1.7 million. If you're going to do, I don't think it needs a gut rehab. You're probably talking about $1 million, I would say, but that's just my guess. The judge was in favor of it being a courthouse for both the town as well as the village. The proposal that the police department is making is for the police to move there, along with having perhaps a state substation there. Has big room for community room. My own thought was, because I was coming into this somewhat thinking, oh, the building's going to have to be demolished because that's what some of the statements that were out there. But at the same time, we were also talking about when the county was going to build a new building, that they could put the money into that building if it was viable. So from a revitalization effort perspective, that street is not good. It'd be one of 4 or 5 empty buildings along within a block and a half. If that building sits empty, it's not going to help us in terms of the gateway in any way. Whether the village would take it over, that's a question we have, but it's late in the game now I think, to do anything very specific on this. I'm personally feeling we should have got involved with this months ago, which I think we talked about at a meeting, but nothing happened. So it's kind of late to, okay, how are we gonna put this together, and what are we gonna do, and da-da-da. However, it is a problem. It is a Main Street building. I really doubt somebody's gonna come in with private money and put that together and kind of putting it under tax rules. You gotta look at it in the context of what the future is. I mean, be frank here, there was discussions about the police department sometime becoming a town police department. And what's the vision here? It goes back to your point about comprehensive planning. Where are we going? Are we just doing things ad hoc, or is there some vision here ahead of it?
Yeah, do we want to just make it big enough or stretch this building out enough for what we need now, or should we be thinking about down
5
the
years
road?
from now. My own impression was it's doable. Do we want to do it? The operational costs, we did get operational costs, and it was around $1,500 to $1,600 a month that the county was paying for utilities, and everything wasn't as high as we thought it
It's
would be.
between $12,000 and $14,000. I FOIL requested the utility information
A month?
a year ago. A year.
Oh, yeah, it's about the same amount.
That's not maintenance, so that's just like the electric and the heat.
That's just-
That's all the electric,
Recurring.
all the heat, yeah.
I mean, it left a lot of stuff in it, actually. It didn't even clean it out, I gotta say.
But yeah, it's a way better space than the way they were using it. There's all the offices there, which would be, well, you can speak to that.
Yeah, the office spaces where mental health was are actually usable in the current layout they are, as well as the DMV office. That was renovated. When was the flood?
2017 or 18.
So that completely got renovated after the flood because that was full of.
That's been cleaned. The whole downstairs has been cleaned.
It's cleaned up since we were there?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
'Cause
Much
it wasn't renovated when we were
No,
there.
even Mark made a reference.
Yeah, 'cause it
the
was-
downstairs, there was no mold.
There was still open studs when we were there.
Yeah.
Oh no, it's.
No, it's
Yeah.
downstairs was totally clean. I didn't smell any mold or anything. There's mold on the side drywall where the center was. The
Can you-
downstairs was in much better shape because we all got sick while that building was on.
Is the county committed to turning it over for this use?
I did not get any sense of resistance from their part.
John, you want to talk about the records?
I'd be surprised if they would get it.
situation? The storage space downstairs in the basement
Yeah, it's
is
huge.
huge. Awesome.
That's definitely. If anybody has been in there before, there's two very large. There's a smaller room, and then there's a very large open room that can be utilized for records.
You know, they had their gym down there.
Yeah.
That's where they had the equipment.
Which would solve our record issue now because we're at max. Within a couple of years, we're right full, so we got to figure out somewhere to put records. But that wouldn't just be our records. That would also be if the court was to move there, she would move her records there as well. So that would accommodate definitely both. But we could also partition off parts of that for different uses as well, such as evidence, which you could put that in the back corner. It's secured, no windows, no nothing. It's secured, nice and tight. It would solve a lot of issues for the police department now, where we have one locker room, for example, where we do have a female officer, so we're all sharing one locker room. That would accommodate that as well. It's just we're in a very small space with a busier police department than we have been in many years.
And I think if we have, I guess it's not really a perk, it's kind of a necessity, having separate locker rooms or decent locker rooms, which I imagine you spend a lot of time switching out clothes and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
Having a nicer one of those might a little bit make up for the lower end of the salary that we pay.
And part of it, if we were to move, we wouldn't have to put cells back in. If we stay in this building, the way our building is configured down in the basement, New York State Department of Corrections sees that as a lockup, so cells have to be put back in. They should have never been taken out years ago. That was well before any of us were here. And that is, the last time we got priced a couple of years ago was about $55,000 just for the fronts that doesn't
Yeah.
include the toilets, all the other stuff that
Yeah.
has to go in the cells.
Plumbing, electric, security.
Yes. And there's other docks requirements you have to fulfill. If we were to move, we wouldn't have to have cells, we would have like the state police currently have, it's a booking room with a bench, you process them, they're gone. We would look to do the same thing.
The wiring in the building's very hodgepodge. That I think over the last 4 years probably.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
just,
It's
every
one
time they
area
ran
that-
a,
You
Still
need
has
a whole
fuses.
new service that
Yeah.
would be.
My understanding is the whole building is fused. Like, remember the old things we had with glass in the front?
They got
No,
it.
not knob and tube.
No,
no
fused.
fuse.
Oh,
no.
fuses,
Oh,
yeah,
They
yeah.
have that.
Fused means it's
Yeah, they are
I think-
definitely
Not as old as
fuses.
knob and tube.
Looking at it, I think the wiring is good, but the panels would definitely have to be upgraded. Because if they were in a fuse type system, that tells me that the wiring is not that old as a knob and tube system. So you'd have to replace the panels, not necessarily all the wiring.
Now, interesting, the driveway between that and Great Wall is owned by that building.
Mm-hmm. That's that parking.
Although there's a no parking sign by the county that nobody can park along the building.
No parking
How-
between 8 a.m. to 5 p.m.
Yeah.
They're like,
It's very, very old.
Looks like one of our signs. But
You know,
if somebody else bought that, that could very easily be closed off for Great Wall and everything else. Kenny knew about that situation. I didn't think of that, but that is part of the private property that goes around.
What is the space right behind the building here?
that is owned by the Patriot.
Patriot goes right up to the steps. They own
Okay.
right with those steps. The Patriot tattoo shop owns right there.
So the county put a,
By the way,
And there's two
a
junk
car in
cars there,
there.
by the way.
we did find junk cars. In
Oh,
there.
yeah.
Hey, Mark, two
Yeah,
junk
Margaret
cars.
West
stay
Falls,
there.
so you gotta take care of them now.
So the county put, actually right about where your mouse pointer is, the county had put a concrete pad in because they were gonna put a large propane tank in. The county engineer said, hey, put this in.
Oh,
And then they were like, hey, thanks for the pad, but that's not your property. So
Nice.
So along the building is where the propane tanks are now, towards the east side of the building. That's where
Wow.
the county owns, and then from that walkway where the stairs go up, straight back is county owned, and there's kind of a line from the corner down along Spring Street. It's like a triangle.
I have a bunch of survey maps. I'm gonna try to
So
bring those up.
who owns the parking lot at the across from the armory?
It's a mix.
Depends who you
It's
ask.
a mix between the town, the village, and the county, is my understanding.
I
Kenny's,
don't
because
believe.
that's a town road.
Yeah, no, it's
That's
a
a village
village
road.
road. That's the only. We don't
Kenny?
own any of the parking lot, according to Kenny.
No, we own Kennedy Lane.
Right, that's right. That's not the
Which
parking
is
lot.
where the electric cars are parked.
Right.
And we had to give approval for that, is my understanding.
So the center where he said, Mark said where Top Gas, is that what he said?
Yeah, in the center, your top
He said
gas used to be.
that's, he's pretty sure that's county owned.
I mean, that's a concern I have about
Well, if
parking.
that's the case, the county-owned parking can come with the building.
Yeah, you're talking what, 8 spots, 10 spots.
Tax map shows the county owns the piece that's Elm Street and Church Street, that corner of parking there, shows that the county owns that. But then where your electrical, your electric car hookups and all
Yeah.
that shows Village of Hoosick Falls owns that.
Yeah, that's actually.
Right, yeah, we know that's Kenny Lane. Yeah,
It's
that's
just technically a street, it's not a parking area.
right. It is
The scene. What's up, buddy?
So, hearing a lot of pros for this, revamping a building in an area that already has a lot of vacant buildings, more space for PD court, upstairs office space could be ready to go for other services. PD would have a lot of improvements, more record space, availability for a second locker room. Cells would not be required in the new location. Any other sort of pros you want to throw out there?
Opens up space here,
Yes.
considerable space here.
Are there any proposals for what would be done with this if everything else was to move over there?
No, Rob has a proposal for expanding this building for the police department.
But if that were not the option, and the option were instead to move everything over there, is there any idea yet for what would?
We
That
don't
would-
have
but
enough
that's not
space
been
anyway.
a discussion
Okay,
anywhere.
just
Not
curious.
yeah.
Yeah, and just kind of spitballing off of that, because assuming that the court and the PD would be able to move over there, You'd have a lot more space for public restrooms. You could expand some of the village office, but there would be a lot of space here that just wouldn't be used as much. Maybe you could knock out some space here and have a larger meeting room again.
Oh, I bet Mark is gonna have another person, so, you know,
Yes.
they're gonna need a
Yeah.
place. Mark is,
We may have another accounting person.
yeah,
If you-
right,
you
and we're
start
gonna have
planning
a
for
space to, you know, Mark likes to spread out his
Oh, yeah.
plans and,
I mean, everything is tight here, and all of the storage downstairs is also quite tight. So it would not be hard to do it. And talking with John Cooney, the contractor who's kind of helping us come up with the design, none of these walls are load bearing. It's side walls. They're load bearing, so it's not a huge deal to change the footprints here. It's
Rob,
obviously.
Well, that
you
wall
wanna
comes down.
Talk about what the plans are for this building? since
Yeah,
the
I
county
can
does the
quickly jump to that. I don't have other projects are more developed. I'm just going to kind of work off of some basic pictures. Give me just a minute to find those.
I have one quick question
Sure.
regarding the $1 million estimate or whatever you had 1 point. What'd you say?
1.7 if you're gut
1.7 for
rehabbing.
gut.
Is that prevailing wage?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So I just want to make sure. Okay.
I think it was 133,000.
It has to be.
133,000
it was Craig
for a
that
roof.
gave you that information, right?
Right, okay.
Craig Kennedy.
Cool. Okay. Yeah, I just want to make sure we're talking.
You know, he
You
called me
guys
earlier and I
talking
said,
to
hey,
public-
put on one.
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize you have to pay
government.
unit
Yeah.
wage.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
that's why I
Little
call him
you draw
Craig, 'cause he
find out.
knows all.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. I just wanted to make sure. That's all.
So just to give a little bit of background here,
Because the village has to pay that wage?
No, any government
Any
government
government.
project has to be
Yeah.
funded. It has
And
to be paid.
most
Right.
government-
Because the village would be doing it.
yeah.
No.
Yeah, and
If you-
any,
No, New York Forward said
It doesn't
you
need
do
to be?
not. No.
any
It is if it's a
project,
public
any
project.
any public project that
Right,
receives,
you guys are doing
Yeah,
it, yeah.
and any public
Yeah.
project that gets more than 2,000 in federal money is subject to what's called the Davis-Bacon Act, and it basically says you have to prevailing wage on the whole thing.
Yeah, and usually, well, for a lot of grants, they make you have to find minority and women-owned businesses
To get a quote. Yeah.
to get a quote. And
So I have some pretty weird drawings here. I'm going to start with a good one. John Cooney, a while back, we paid him a few $1,000s to design some improvements to the front of the municipal building. The improvements would be to take the existing police footprints and lose some space in what has sort of been the chief's or the administrative office here. Expand what are currently the male bathrooms to make this the female bathrooms. It would give it an ADA compliant handicap stall plus a second stall. And then to take the side, which is currently the ladies' bathroom, take a little bit of space that we had claimed back when Neil redid the bathroom for the village office. And this would create both a urinal and an ADA compliant stall, which would improve the bathroom facilities for all of our public events quite dramatically. Yeah.
just a quick question. It's 2024. Is there a reason why we have to have separate bathrooms? You can't have all.
No,
bathrooms?
there's not. I mean, ideally, if we had two separate rooms that were different sizes and like a third room for like family type situations, that would be great. The existing footprint doesn't really work for that, unfortunately, so we're kind of stuck with the old model. But this, whenever we're here for events, we know the ladies line is long and all the guys kind of look guilty going in and quickly doing their thing and leaving, although it's the other direction, as it currently is, and that's always bothered me. So it'd be a big improvement to have a more functioning bathroom. We also had him look into replacing the side ramps and moving them to the front. This drawing doesn't represent it, and the drawing I have has a previous version, but what our intention to do with the front lobby is to have the ramps come up from the front left of the building. It would kind of come up, loop back around, and then land on the front lobby, which you can't see right here. It's not pictured here. And then you'd have a button here. The door would be hinged on the opposite side and open there. So what you would finally have is you'd have a properly ADA compliant access to public restrooms in the village, which right now you have to navigate that ramp, pray to God the side door's open, and that you can get all the way through there, which is
Well, if we put the police department
Such
over
a
there, we
weird
could have
design.
another public bathroom.
so. Oh yeah,
Absolutely.
that's definitely true. So what I did next is I asked him to think through some other adjustments, and I went to my iPad and chicken scratched a whole bunch of stuff here. No, this is not the one I want to show you. I have a slightly better chicken scratch one. So this, just focusing on the back half of the building right here, the room we're sitting in here is 33 feet this way and 18 feet this way. And what we worked through with John Cooney is proposing an addition that would go out into the parking lot. It would maintain a lot of the existing building side here. It would continue to use this stairway that's actually a basement access to the stairway, which is a nice thing for police if they want to bring people right down to booking that way. And it would allow this room to increase in distance by another 12 whole feet this way. And it would allow us to basically have a bigger courtroom and a bigger meeting room. Additionally, on this chicken scratch picture, nope, I don't have it. It's the same one. One of the things that I'd mapped out with John was the safety of the court and the court clerk is quirky. When the court clerk is here for office hours, there's nothing stopping someone from just going back there. Like, we're just hoping that they're going to be nice civil people, and that's not always the case.
That's why they're in court.
Yeah, most courts will have much more protection, such as a window right here. So one of the things that we're proposing is by taking this existing room, giving a bunch of it over to the PD, but maintaining this area right here for a court office, that would give them access to the courtroom through a little like lobby hallway here, and then access to where the court would be up there. If you give me 1 second, I have a better drawing of this because I know I sent it to the trustees.
There was one that had two. There was a document that had two images.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking for. Yes, here it is. Let me download this and put it up on the screen. Okay. So, oh, hey, I can't zoom properly. So this shows a better structure. This hallway here, instead of stopping at the doorway here, would continue. The police would gain all of this space here and change the overall footprint of that location. This corner here would be the court office with a functional court window along the main hallway. John Cooney is looking to see if there's a way to continue on through there. To make the doorway into that room right there. It's possible, but it's close just because of the position of the stairs. But if not, it could be shifted over, and then you could just go out that door here. This space right here where you guys are sitting could be gained by the village office, and you could, change the footprint or move storage into this room, or get rid of this wall and make the code enforcement spot larger. So this was just a general idea. It includes leaving the storage. Outside storage spot over there, right there. It would include allowing the generator to stay and not have to move. The AC unit that sits on here that just powers this room would likely be adjusted to just do the village office side, and a new heating and cooling unit would be brought in via HVAC to not only do the new courtroom, but to do the police as well as a second zone. So that's kind of the concept that we have right now. From the village municipal point of view, we would probably need to pay John another $2,000 or $4,000 to better develop this into the computer, and then that design would be a concept design that if we were to get this project awarded, we would then put out an RFP to have different people come in and do the design work and all the shenanigans.
Do you have a ballpark number?
No. I got to speak to John yesterday. I haven't gotten a good idea on distance. Square footage and how much he expects. I know, what was the number that you guys said adding square feet was per square foot? 80 something? $80 a square foot? What is it?
I was gonna guess 100. So
100?
it would prevailing wage.
How many
80 would be light.
parking spaces?
Based on what we insure buildings for, 80 would be light.
Okay.
Yeah, I was gonna guess 100.
Yeah, I would go to at least 125 minimum to estimate.
So I'm going to work through those numbers. This is one of the two that I haven't really been able to fully develop yet. But having this idea and having better specs in this will allow us to do some more looking into it. And I was able to pull up the highway garages budget, which was a $1.6 million project. Now that project was from scratch, and it had 4 categories. You had your GC, your general contractor, your HVAC, your electric, and your plumbing. This addition requires no plumbing because all the plumbing is on the other side of the building, so there's nothing that would need to be.
It's just
plumbed in.
space.
It's just space, electric, and HVAC.
Insulation, sheetrock,
Yeah.
studs.
HVAC runs like $35,000.
I would probably say higher because they're gonna have to change the ductwork. I wouldn't be surprised if that was like just looking at the highway garage HVAC quote. It was pretty big. I could see that going 75 to 100 when it's all said and done. I would kind of ballpark this as maybe an $800,000 to $1 million addition.
I was going to say 650, but
I'm probably going a little bit high, but if you think about the square footage in the highway garage
680.
versus this one, it's a smaller, it's a
Wow.
considerably smaller
So-
project. Now a lot has changed since the years when we, in 2000, I think it was 19 when we were 20 when we were doing that. A lot's changed in the past 4 to 5 years with numbers.
I guess my question would be, if we can achieve absolutely everything we want to do, not take on another building that's, in my opinion, going to be a maintenance nightmare from a guy that owns an old house. It's as soon as you get into mold, you got abatement issues. You got to find the cause of the mold. If we can do everything we want to do, keep it here in one spot, why would we take on a whole new building at twice the cost?
So it's not empty.
That's one.
No, I know it's not empty, but
And to accommodate future, not just what you
yeah,
have
but
now.
what would we be? I mean, we're a village of 4,000 people. I mean, and I understand what you're saying, Deb, about possibly being a town police department, but I make 2 points to that. The first one is, I've never heard anyone on the political side in the town being in favor of that option. Things may have changed, but that was like kryptonite as far as I'd always known. The other thing
Harold
is,
was
look,
big on that.
Harold's not.
Yeah,
Harold's not on the town.
Harold's not elected.
Harold's not on the town board. And the other thing is, just looking ahead to the future, it can go the other way too. We're seeing a lot of villages just eliminate their police departments. See, so Whitehall just disbanded and contracts with the sheriff's department. So, I mean, in my opinion, the future is more of consolidation and actually probably looking at doing a shared thing with the sheriff's department than it is even as trying to turn a police department of a village of 4,000 people into some gigantic police force.
That's true, but if you have
So-
a county outpost, then that other building is also perfect because it allows the county to actually put people here.
It also is another building we have to maintain into perpetuity, and it's going to be a very expensive building to maintain. You got a flat roof, which anybody that's ever owned a building with a flat
It'd be a new
knows.
roof that wouldn't be flat. The price is $103,000.
That includes a gable in the
A new
roof.
roof, yeah. It's not flat.
That's
Oh,
good.
okay.
That's necessary.
Is it, just from a New York Forward perspective, because I know the applications right now don't have to be totally finished as you're talking about.
Yes.
Is it possible for and there's a runway, 3 months before
It's I'm
public decision? Is it possible to send both proposals just to keep something alive and let this process a little bit?
So that's actually
Good deal.
the first question I have for New York Forward tomorrow morning is that exact thing. I think there's a way, if we decide that this is worth pursuing, we can put in an application with a general idea of things. It'll be a very loose application, but, and as I was going to say in kind of the introduction, they've been really preaching that the applications have to be in by the deadline. If you have a great idea and it misses the deadline, it's off the table. That's it. If you have a fantastic idea, but it has nothing vetted, like this will be a very quick thing, that still gives you a conversation at the table and time to do
Kind
it.
of like our original proposal. It didn't have
Yeah.
to be totally spelled out.
Yeah. Now, in my mind, I've been kind of setting mid-October as kind of the final point for all of the data that I would need to build in. Now, I don't know if that's exactly right. That's kind of what I've been getting the gist of. But the last, I think, LPC meeting is late October. I think there's a
And they
possible
said
November one.
Possible November.
So in my mind, I'm trying to get all of the data figured out by October, middle of the month, or earlier if possible. So the first question is, we there's nothing stopping us from saying we're going to pursue this with the county. We're expecting this much money. We're expecting this much work. We have
But
a
we're not
preliminary
sure.
quote. We could put that together quickly. And if we decide in a month to abandon it, I think that is probably a better approach and gives us time to vet this out. Now
Yeah,
that's assuming that they're okay with
Yeah,
this.
because I could see more time for public input. That's a sensitive issue, that building there. So it does need to be processed, and maybe there's things the county can do, financially or otherwise.
Especially if you give them space.
Huh?
Yeah.
You give their police department space.
I don't know if they'll take it, Mary Ann.
But we don't know.
You don't know. I mean, there's no substation. Where are substations right now for the sheriff's department?
They currently use ours.
No,
Yeah.
where are the
They
substations
don't
in
have
communities? Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
They have right. They're used here. State troopers use. State police use the Hoosick police or Hoosick Fire Department. Right. They have an office over there.
Once they're there, once in a blue moon.
Oh, I know.
I was in the ambulance when it was.
Oh, yeah,
over
I know
far.
that.
I saw them maybe 10 minutes a week.
But they pay the Hoosick Fire Department
For that little
money
space,
for
yeah.
that, yeah.
So just to go back to Dan's points, we have a pretty healthy list of pros, and I think they're solid pros.
Oh,
I
absolutely.
do think we should also continue to vet out the cons. You mentioned a second building to maintain is a big
building
deal.
to maintain.
A building that has a history of mold issues, although it's been nice to hear that you guys saw that it seems to be properly fixed and
Except for the
addressed.
drywall.
Except the drywall, the southern wall, and the roof. But
And
we
you have-
know that going in.
You also got to look at the fact you have almost no access to the left side of the building, which is why there's trees growing out over there. There's, looks to me about maybe 30 inches of space
Between the two buildings.
between the two buildings. And if you know anybody that has bought one of these old buildings anywhere here, Troy, Albany, whatever, that's a nightmare scenario to do any maintenance in those.
I have two other
Alleys.
cons in this area. If we throw court over there, it's going to make parking more congested in that spot. I mean, it just moves the congestion from here to over there.
Well, you got to think about the pickleball too, because pickleball,
Yep.
that parking lot
They
is
don't play
full
on
every day.
They don't play
It's
on
quite popular.
Thursdays.
They don't?
They don't play on
Well, that's
Thursdays.
good.
Ever.
There's also the possibility, a long-term possibility of if this courtroom works so well for the village, what if the town court decides to move over there and leave the armory? I don't want to put the armory in a bad spot.
That's not our decision.
No, I know that, but it would be in the list of
That
possible
might not be our
cons.
decision, but I certainly don't want to aid in that process.
No, I agree. Because it's
I
going to
don't.
be our
I want to look
eyesore.
at a vacant armory for
That
the
would
sake
be,
of
it would
saving
be
the
our
Murphy
eyesore.
building.
And then, there's basically two things that we've talked about that I think as elected officials we have to be careful about with context. The first is the possibility of a townwide police department. I know we've talked about that, and it is a good thing to look forward to, but it's also been mentioned that there's been no indication from the town leadership in any way that the leadership or the people would be interested in that.
Well, this starts that conversation and opens it up more widely than just
Yeah,
it's
and
in the background.
And I've thought about that long term because I know before PFOA happened and before I think Mayor Board started, maybe it was at the beginning of Mayor Board's term, before everything got sidetracked by PFOA, there had been an investigation looking into combining the town and the village into one. I think that was under Mayor
That was
Monahan.
when, yes, it was. It was when I first moved here.
As a whole.
It was
As
when
a
I
whole.
first, as a whole.
Dissolving the village.
And
Yeah.
Yes.
the biggest
Well-
problem with that was the police department. From
Well,
what I
you
recall.
take-
Yes, because the
So,
town
You take
didn't
the
want-
New Pulse model, which did that,
Mhm.
and actually they used the governance model of the village. So actually the town supervisor has the power of the mayor. And they came up with a hybrid model that kept the police department under
Yep.
the head, so there's
In-
ways around that.
Like
But
Green
I think
Island-
those
like
are
Green
things to
Island.
be explored.
Oh, I do
But,
too.
but
I
here,
do too.
I'm gonna ask John, is the model that we're talking about, from a con perspective, does that give you the police the space you need, not just next year, but for the next 4 or 5 years, as you see it?
Well, actually, for the next
Yeah,
10 years, because
yeah.
it's going to be 3 or 4 years.
Yes.
It gives you office space, but it doesn't address the storage space.
And you're going to have to, I mean, there's going to be more
That's
stuff
the-
to store.
That's the issue with this model, is it doesn't address the storage
And
space.
storage has to be where the department is? Can't be off-site?
Yeah,
Well, it needs to
because
be
Kenny asked
secure.
about-
Can't these be digitized?
No.
That's
What
what I
is
was
the
gonna
cost
ask.
of the
And,
new cells and stuff that you're gonna have to add to whatever the cost of this addition is?
50
A
to
couple of years ago, it was
60,000.
50 something, so. it's
But we would
probably
have to
up
add that into the
60.
new building.
No, you wouldn't. Full stall.
No.
I don't think.
It has to do with the way the
That'd
state
be a
has
holding.
decided that this has to be a holding place, but that one wouldn't have that.
It wouldn't fall on that.
It's kind of one of those weird caveats. It's just kind of the way it works out.
If we're able to, let's just play this out conceptually, because we already know what the county would do or not do
Mm-hmm.
or any of that. If we were able to toss in both applications for consideration, would it be of value to create like a community task force to look at the viability of both and come back to the board with a recommendation, or just
Looking
kinda-
at both the municipal building and that, or
Yeah,
looking
yeah,
at.
because that's what we're talking
Okay.
about, right?
I thought you were talking about like
No,
townwide.
no, I'm talking
town
about
and
what's
village
the
connection.
process of that, and it's one of those areas because
Was
there
that
could be a lot
something
of
the
pushback.
community, the whatever it's
The
called.
LPC?
review,
No.
the review board.
CCRB.
Yeah, what do you guys call it? Yes.
LPC?
Yeah, the
No,
community
no.
review, citizens review.
LBJ,
CRR.
Yeah, that was-
Civilian Review and Reform Board. CRRB.
I think
Hey, Trish, you can share that.
if we take the lead on throwing both ideas out there and getting feedback on that, I think it's going to be a lot of effort over the next month, but I think it's very doable.
How quickly can you get an estimate on this, John?
Yes, John would be able to ballpark that. For you.
Oh, okay.
He was here taking measurements and a bunch of different things and looking at things.
And
one
I
of the
would
things,
suggest that this include all the components of this, the addition, the cells, the bathrooms, so that we're
Yep.
really being able to compare
Yep.
apples to apples, what this project will cost on the front end
Mm-hmm.
versus the other one, and then what this would cost maintenance-wise going forward, as Dan mentioned, with the other one being an additional.
But the original idea here was the public amenities, the economic development, and
Mhm.
the parties and be able to do that, and the handicap access. The original
that was just the
vital
original
pieces,
plan.
that was the original plan, and then expanded out into
Right.
other areas. So it still needs to be
But
worked on.
there are components
That
to
has to
each
stay.
aspect of what would need to be done
Yes.
to this building to
That's
make
right.
it work versus what we would need to do there.
Correct.
And it would be really, I mean, it's a lot of work, but that's the decision.
Right.
And you want them to be comparing apples to apples,
Exactly.
not well, this one's not going to have the cell renovations
Right,
included. No,
exactly. You
I
need to
100%.
have, you need
But
to
I-
look at the whole picture
You got to
of
be
both.
comparative.
Yeah.
I think you
Go
need.
Dan then Deb.
I think you need to do a cost plus over there though, because anybody, we all probably live in old houses. Like this, it's upstate New York, right? And anybody that's ever had work done or done work on an old house, you know, Mr. So and So, we opened up the wall and we didn't know about this.
Oh my
Everything,
gosh.
cisterns in the yard and old faucets that have been leaking for years that were improperly capped in walls and electrical lines that go to nowhere and mold problems that can't be abated and like there's no way you're touching a building like that without ripping it apart and knowing there's going to be cost plus. You got to figure in cost plus.
I
On
have a
that.
thing to add to that, but I want to go to Deb first. Unless you want me to go first.
No, where are the, how much parking are we losing? How many parking
We
spaces?
would lose the 4
30 feet.
police parking spots and probably adjust them over here along the side of the building. We would lose 1 or 2 spots over there
So
where
7
the
shops?
judge spots would have to move back. We could always push into the park a little bit to see if we wanted to add some spots back there. It may require moving one of the new trees though, which would be really unfortunate.
The other question is, in this drawing, the new room, you have to get from the court office to the new court. You have to go outside?
There is an outside exit here, so in case there was a problem with the court and they needed to have an emergency
Oh, I
exit,
see,
they
okay.
could. Or if the courtroom
Oh, I see,
needed
there's
it.
another door over there.
Yeah.
So that's kind of funky, that.
The one thing I don't
You'd
have
have
is
two emergency
I didn't build in a door right here off of the main hallway, which I think would make sense, but that's John will figure that out. I mean, we can put the window over here and a door over there, but this would just give the court a lot more space than that cute little closet there with 2 doors.
Another suggestion, real quick, from touring the downstairs of this place, which is quite interesting, actually. If anybody's interested, there's literally gasoline logs from the 1930s for police cars. If you want to read it, it's very interesting. But there's also a lot of unused space down there, and a lot of those village records could be. I mean, maybe we could
Why
have
can't they
someone
be scanned and
There's-
digitized? Right.
There's
and give the police department that. That's a good size area. For,
There's not as much free space down there as we would like. They've maxed out nearly every room they have down there, and there's a lot that we are able to remove, and that room needs a lot of attention to begin with, but there's also a lot of stuff that we have to maintain records for X amount of years. So-
as a village, you mean, like
as
government?
as a
records?
village government. There's a whole records requirements and types of things and how long you have to hold them for, and it's like a whole nother level of reorganizing the room and then seeing what you can dispose of. I mean, all this stuff is supposed to be disposed of. It's old court stuff, but that is because it's fallen outside of the window of what has to be maintained.
The other suggestion I'd make is that maybe you could ask John if this can be excavated right here and just add on basement space.
That's something we didn't
It's
look into.
not
but it makes
horrendous.
sense.
I know when I was looking at doing my addition, going out 8 feet by 10 feet was like 10,000 to have it. Now that's not prevailing wage, but it wasn't horrendously expensive.
That's an interesting idea.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
not horrendously expensive if you do it well, but when it's open like this, you can just back something in and
Right.
Dig it out.
Yeah.
it's another thing to take part of the foundation wall and run
Yep.
a skid steer in, right? It's another
Yep.
thing when it's all open, you can bring in real
Yeah.
equipment.
And that would match the footprint in the basement. It would extend
And you
storage
could
that way.
design it in a way that's secure for police records and not.
Yes.
If you're talking about in the Murphy building, putting the records in the basement, has it been waterproofed, and what are the requirements to prevent against a future flood? Because if you're gonna have paper records down there, there's a
That-
concern of losing those as well.
And I'd love to
And
stick a
that's-
Well,
hydrometer
we've
down
done
there too.
every preventative as far as a future flood shouldn't happen.
We have more
the
flood
woods broke.
mitigation efforts in this, but
Yeah, I just wasn't sure if it was taken into consideration.
I'd also make a quick
it is
observation.
a risk, and that was a concern I had, and I also have a little bit concern of, and I have to give the county credit. They did do a really nice building, and it has gotten a lot of really good positive vibes from it, and it was really good to see. The one big question that we never got an answer was were they going to guarantee busing, and they have started busing, and it's on Facebook.
So
So
far,
that's good, but
you have to.
I know the process we went through. We were very open
For
with
now.
everything going on, and we did not get good, solid, reliable answers on things. And it just adds another layer of how much of that building do I trust?
So the other thing is, if anybody's been in the DMV over there, it's musty. And when it was in the basement, and that's nothing to do with the flood or anything. That's because the building was built before proper basement vaporizing was done, which is to dig it out, put down stone, put down plastic, then pour concrete. So I'd love to stick a hydrometer in that basement over there and see what it is, because if you're going to store paper records, they're organic.
Yeah.
And if you do not keep it at the humidity at the proper level, you're going to have green paper.
So why do
Well, there's plenty
records
of
need to
space on
go
the
in the
first floor.
basement?
I mean, we can find it.
They don't necessarily need
Right.
to, just that's where the
That was
space
just a
is.
thought.
Okay,
Or
I'm just.
wherein-
Everybody keeps talking about records in
Well-
the basement. In the armory, they're on the third floor, and I know you don't have the third floor, but
I wish
the
we had.
point is,
Oh my gosh.
I don't understand why, if you have that huge building, they need to be in the basement in the first
They
place.
don't need to bring the basement.
You could put records in
Lots of
the
space.
back part, yeah.
But even without records, it limits your ability to. I mean, you want to put something down there with an office with computer stuff and all that. You get
Yeah.
problems.
How was it in there today? Did it smell at all?
No, Mark was even,
Well, I know.
Very
I was in the
surprised.
last time we were in there
Yeah.
with
no,
Mark.
it wasn't like when we were in there.
Okay.
The
But
only
it's-
other thing I don't want to lose track of is with taking over the Murphy building and revamping that, we're also going to face a fair amount of revamping here.
Mhm.
And not just what we had already expected to do with the bathrooms and the ramps, but whatever we decide to change this, so there's another expense there. So I could see taking the Murphy building would almost be like a 1.5 to 2 times the ask, when including all this from just building out.
So you're
But at the same time, I am closer to the middle on this as an undecided than I was coming into this. I was much more on the con side before you guys reported a much better walkthrough today.
But you're saying to do an apples to apples comparison, you need to take the cost of both projects and then subtract from this one what has to be done anyway.
Yes.
Gotcha. Understood.
And to add in the work over there plus the work over
The-
here to reset this.
The other thing about if you were to excavate this out, it would be done to modern standards, which would be subfloor drainage. You would have stone, plastic, concrete. You would have tarred walls and everything like that. So you would have a room that does not permeate
Be
moisture.
waterproof.
A lot of people don't realize concrete. Water goes through concrete. Moisture goes through concrete. It's not a waterproof barrier.
The other
It's-
good thing
quite
about
bad,
this
actually.
spot is the power lines are off the back of the corner of the building to go to the generator there, so we're not going to hit it digging here. And most of the power lines over here are right underneath the sidewalk and in that spot. What other things underneath there? There are things underneath there. I'm going to flip the table. Flip the
There
table.
is actually, no, not many people know this, there is a direct line from that Verizon building that comes straight across and comes right in here.
Oh, it's underneath on this side, isn't it?
It's a dedicated line
Oh.
that comes right across.
That'll be fun.
Another, just throwing this out here, is that.
Sure.
If the determination is not to do anything with the building from the village perspective, and if part of that, and that's with 100% paid for by somebody else, not by
Mhm.
us,
Yep.
then what are we talking about doing with that? And now we're talking about demolishing it. Or you just leave it there.
Or hoping that someone takes it up.
Yeah, hoping,
rolling the
trusting.
dice.
But we have somewhat control over what happens to that right now.
Yeah.
We wanna give that up and let the county do whatever they do. We
Yeah.
run, again, I'm into this is about revitalizing downtown.
Yeah.
And that building is
Agreed.
right there next to, not far from the new store.
I get it.
Coming into it.
I
So I'm just
understand
saying, and I don't think, I thought that they, originally New York Forward did not allow demolition, but then they did. They did in Hudson.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they allowed some it came out about 5 months ago.
Okay.
On a grant that they got 2 years. So they did demolish the old fishing stuff there. That was
Okay.
one of the rail tracks and stuff.
Okay.
So I'm just throwing that out. I'm just thinking of options as opposed to just leaving that building there and
Yeah.
walking away and
And-
saying, we'll deal with it. Some other board will deal with it.
And one argument to expect if the municipality takes it over is that means it won't go on the tax map. And I know when we did the Hall Street buildings, which was a huge plus for flood mitigation efforts, people were still upset that we were taking 5 or 6 buildings off.
Well, that building
the
isn't on
tax
the
roll.
tax map now.
Well, no, but if it was taken up by a private entity and reset, it would be back on the
Yes.
tax roll. Yeah. All right, we've discussed this. I think it's worth pursuing an additional application for the Murphy building and throw it in there. Are you guys good with that? Okay.
Yep.
And then we can decide later. Okay.
And
Any other
so
questions?
Can you ask me, when you're asking questions about demolition, if it's part
Yes.
of development in some way?
Yes.
Is New York Forward gonna also require you to make energy efficient improvements because of the
Yes.
requirement?
So
And then is
we
that
would-
figured into the estimates?
Mhm.
I
And
don't
is there,
think it
is there
was-
ADA issues over there too? Because I bet dollars to donuts we'd have to bring it all into compliance.
Oh, almost definitely. With the amount of work
That's-
we're talking about.
And you know,
it's
just from
almost
the
like
cost of a ramp
any
here.
construction.
Well, it's all on the same, you don't need to go up
It's all same
steps.
It's
to
more
go
than-
there.
Yeah,
more
one of
than
the
lower.
rear, one of the rear doors of the two rear
Is
doors
level.
though is
Okay.
stairs.
All right.
There's a ramp or no?
All right. Let me go back to the other stuff. Did anyone else have anything they wanted to kind of contribute on that? Okay. So, I'm gonna
I just want to say, I'm concerned about the parking situation at this point.
losing parking here.
Yes.
Yeah.
But also then.
And then one of
they're
the-
on
I'm
both
concerned,
sides of
I'm
the road.
concerned about parking at the other place too, because we don't own it.
One of
Yeah,
the drawings you sent us, it had the diagonal parking out on this side, and that would make it.
Yeah,
Tight
I think
there.
that was a nice pipe dream, but I don't think it'll work.
Plus, you could die when you pull out on the street when there's diagonal
Sure.
parking, like on Main Street.
Oh, I know.
In front of the post office.
Yeah.
That is terrible. Because
Okay.
there's oversized trucks there.
All right.
Yeah,
So,
I can see.
Pulling out here's not.
Coming out from Main Street. too.
fast.
I wish we could.
Oh, what did I just open
Yeah.
up?
Well, I want to look at that parking study. Figure out how many streets.
That was one
I
thing.
just
that-
threw out.
Yeah.
No, everything's
Would you,
come back to
somebody
it.
repeat
No, no,
the
the
number,
study
the
recommended
generic
it.
number
Getting
that was
rid of
thrown
that.
out
When they're trying
a
to
while
park
ago
next to,
about,
like, they do the whole-
somebody thought it was maybe 650, somebody thought it was maybe $1 million.
I
What are we
figured
talking?
here between 800,000 and $1 million, and that was based on the fact that the highway garage 4 or 5 years ago was a $1.6 million project.
And that did include digging out for storage space.
Right. Although they did have to dig out for plumbing and yeah, but it's not an apples to apples comparison. But
But that's also,
So-
that's a
somewhere
big building.
below- Somewhere around $1 million, that's an ask to New York Forward.
that's probably where that would end up. Yeah, I have to review that with
In addition
John.
to whatever else you're talking about.
Yes, as one project of with the
Yes,
4
oh,
or 5
of-
public
yeah.
projects. Good point. Which takes
And-
out money from,
The other,
I'm sorry, we only have 4.5 here, folks.
yeah.
Yeah, but we've been tasked to come up with
Which seemed like a
6.5
lot at the
million.
time, but.
Yes.
So we
I
have to
know,
have, we have to
right?
have $6 million worth of projects to propose.
All right, so these are the 5 projects the village is putting forth. Plus, Marion is going to have a chance to speak, and I'll have pictures and stuff up on the screen about Hoosick Rising's project, which the village will partner with. I'm going to go kind of quickly through these. There are various points of development. The first one is Monument Park, which is the old Oak Mitsui site. My idea, or our idea, is really redeveloping our industrial past into a present full of beauty, opportunity, accessibility that runs in line with a lot of what New York Forward grant in our proposal initially as a whole group was. It was focused on taking water as one of the weaknesses of the past decade and making it one of our strengths. This is in a similar vein. There's a lot to discuss with this, and I actually have a draft grant application I'll just throw up on the screen in just a moment. I'm going to skim through this very, very quickly. You don't need to see the first page, it's all the same stuff. This is the Okemitsui location, and what's important to know about this site is it's not just this main site here. It includes this parking lot here, and it includes this random stretch of land just sitting over there in the corner. And that's going to be important for greenway discussions later. The whole site here is part of this. This comes out of one of the site management plan parts of the various reports that I've been living in. It's been fun. Existing conditions, this was actually, yes, that is actually page 3,968 of a 4,000 page document, but I thought that was a really nice picture they had taken on site. I have a lot of reasons for the need for this project. I'm just going to move quickly through this for the sake of time, but one of the main takeaways that I kind of came to when I was developing was this statement here. And it just checks off so many of the things that we wanted to focus on through the New York Forward Grant project, so it's a really important thing. There's a little bit of history on the site closure. These are pictures that I think I had taken back in November of 2022 when the work was initially done, just showing how nice of an area it was. The final cover is 2 feet of dirt and soil across the entire location. That's all over top the existing land, in which part of it remains concrete foundations and parking lots as an additional barrier. They basically did 3 specific IRMs. 2 of them was removing some hotspot soil contamination they found, and a third one was this cover. Even with the village taking ownership of the property, our requirements are limited. It's maintenance throughout the regular seasons, and if there's any noticeable erosion, we report it to Okemitsui and DEC, and it's not our job to take care of it from that point on. But if we dig, obviously it is. So what I've been able to work on over the past few weeks is connecting with SLR, Engineering, Landscape Architecture, and Land Surveying. They are a group out of New Paltz. They're part of an internationally, SLR is a huge firm. We connected with them when we did work with the Woodsbrook flood mitigation, which led to the 30% design project. They were phenomenal to talk to, and we worked on a scope that would get a 15% conceptual master plan for the site. It would include having environmental engineer, Sterling Environmental, who we've been using for the majority of our contamination-related business, involved in the process, beginning, middle, and end. And this professional services would lead us to a design, a 15% design, around the beginning of 2025, which if the project was awarded through New York Forward grant, we would immediately go right into the 30% design, 60% design, and permitting, and so on and so forth, and we would be full speed ahead. So one of the things that the village is going to consider next week at a regular board meeting are these 2 professional services agreements. The 6-month process, which will involve a fair amount of back and forth with community, both meetings and an online site where people can look at things and leave comments and so on and so forth. And a final couple conceptual plans that they can mix and match for the eventual plan. Is looking to be a $72,000 scope of services with SLR, and a $5,000 to $7,000 scope from Sterling Environmental. That would have the village putting forward about $80,000 worth of development of the site, and would put us right in the beginning of 2025 ready to move forward. So I have not built in those costs. I'm hoping that we as a village can figure out where those costs are going to come from. But I'm going to scroll down. In terms of what we've talked about, again, hasn't been designed yet. We've talked about sidewalk construction, a new footbridge, but that's going to be part of the New York Forward grant proposal for the Greenway. Trees, but there's limits on where we put them. Any large buildings or structures could require excavation, so anytime you do that, it's going to cause possible issues or limit where structures can go. That's why we have the environmental engineers involved. A lot of possibilities have been thrown around: playground, courts like basketball or pickleball, outdoor theater location, free and open space, disc golf, other recreation ideas. There's nothing stopping us from coming up with other ones through this next 6-month process that we're going to do.
And the development, how it's gonna be used, and I know when we went through the process, it could be a little money, depending on to as much as you wanna develop it, so.
Yeah.
It could be 500,000, it could be 2 million, depending
Yeah.
on what you want to put on it. So
I put-
a lot of flexibility there.
Yeah.
So it's not a situation where you can't break the cap, it's just a matter of when you break the cap, there's a cost associated
There's
with
a
it.
cost, and then you got to talk to DEC, and then if there's soil that you have to manage, it gets into a lot
It
of.
doesn't,
But it's not a case of you can't dig at all, it's just
Right.
a matter of there's a cost
You
associated.
can't go
with it.
below the
And-
2-foot
right.
cap.
Well, we
Right,
could.
but if you're putting up a structure,
Right.
you gotta go
could.
below 2 feet,
Right.
so.
Right, but there's locations that may be better than others,
Yeah,
so that's
I just know
why.
that rumors floating around where there's a 2-foot cap, you can't penetrate it.
Yeah.
There's
No,
nothing
no,
you can
no,
build
it's-
on it.
it's-
So I think it's
it's
an
like
but if we
important
do,
point.
if we
Like, it's
do
an important
penetrate,
point to
does
point
that
out
affect
that
our
you can, there's just a
indemnity-
cost.
There's a cost,
indemnity
right.
situation we have?
No, it doesn't. But if we were in the
Yeah.
process
That's what
of
you
doing
change.
something, screw something up, we are the responsible ones
Right.
to
Well,
fix
if we
that.
screwed it
But
up,
that's,
yeah.
right, that's where it gets
Yeah.
mucky, is that
It's-
if we screw something up while
Mayor.
Yeah.
damaging the cap,
Thank
we're liable for it.
I'm gonna.
Is there, is,
sorry.
just out of curiosity, I mean, what, are we gonna focus over there? Is there a thought on focusing on kid stuff? Because we don't have no playground second
I
floor.
think we talked about kids and a pavilion for people to
Yeah.
eat at. It can be low level
Yes.
playground.
Yes.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be a lot of.
It doesn't have to be a lot.
Of course,
One
we
of
have to
you
deal
can-
with the Fourth Ward playground too, so we should probably get one done
And
before we
just-
build another.
Yeah, just like a park. People can walk around it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That could be a
I just
big
think because
there's
there's-
dog park.
Well, the idea of the walkway across the, to the
That's
flood
a-
wall, to the greenway is, I mean, that's critical because.
It is critical.
You can connect to the bike I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah.
that way you can
that's-
just jump
yeah.
on and go either way on
I'll
the.
get
Come
more
up
into
with
that with
something
Greenway.
going up.
Just,
Look at
yeah,
just
just a bridge.
Look at a little bridge going over, yeah.
It's a good idea.
Walking.
So just for budget numbers. Oh, and just for an update on ownership. This is actually, I got to meet the higher ups from Japan, and none of them spoke English, so he translated really, really well. In April of 2024, so that was kind of cool. But we've been approved. The board has approved me as the mayor to authorize and execute the agreement. We're waiting on Oak Mitsui to do one additional thing that's unrelated to us. Once that happens, we're going to sign the agreement, and then we'll schedule the closing. So within the next, I think before the 14th meeting, that's the last thing I heard from Dave today, we should have this ready and signed.
So what that means, just from a community messaging point of view, we're gonna have the land
Yep,
with some liability protections
yep.
and have that before we have any commitment for money to develop it and anything.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. There's definitely a risk with that.
Because, but the risk, right, there's a risk,
Yeah.
but the only risk is we have to mull it.
Yeah.
And that's the only cost to it
And
is.
we know how
the way it
that's
is
gonna
right now.
add a fair amount of work in the spring, summer, fall. We know that. Yeah. Just capacity. We've done so many larger projects over the past 6 to 8 years. It is what it is. This is kind of what I just spitballed based on our sewer projects, because our sewer project had substantial amounts of engineer, construction, observation, and construction administration. I gave us a maximum of $2 million, but I don't know if we're going to propose that. If we go that big, I could see us using $75,000 for environmental engineering services. There are additional legal fees, engineering fees, other weird permitting things that come up. So that is how I ended up, and this actually ended up being really close to what our original thought was in the proposal. I feel like it was like 2.3 or 2.2 or something like that in our.
2.3.
It was 2.3, yeah. So it ended up being really, really close, and that it was actually kind of cool to see that. These are just spitball numbers. I'm going to connect with Mike from SLR tomorrow to see if he agrees with this. But again, it really depends on what we decide as a community we want to see there. So any other questions on this application or this project?
What about parking down there?
We get the parking lot.
Parking lot
It's
across
ours.
the street.
Oh, okay.
All
that's
we'll
good.
need to do is basically just create a local law that dictates what the parking restrictions are or aren't down there, and it's great.
Right
Great,
now,
I
just the
thought
people across the
parking-
street are parking in it.
Right.
That's it. There's like
We'll
two
put up
cars
like
every night.
16 confusing signs.
We got
so
that
we're
covered.
doing
No
over
overnight
there.
parking,
Wait,
but
let's-
parking
yeah,
in
we
We
And,
say no parking
between,
between 12 and 11, period.
Yes, every third Wednesday of the fourth month.
Yeah, the
In a
board.
leap
We'll
year.
put them on top of each other, so they're really
In a leap year.
In a leap year.
The board has this scope of service, but this was the scope of service for going to that 15% design that starts with the kickoff meetings and virtual meetings, and a large amount of public engagement items, which I thought was really, really cool to hear that they've had the most success by going right to community engagement right off the bat.
Perfect.
So, all right, I'm going to jump back to our next thing here, which is, I'm going to try to speed through this quickly. So I don't have this fully developed, so I don't have a full number yet, although I'm pretty close on some things. There's 6 items that I'm trying to get accomplished that will unify the Hoosick River Greenway, which right now has a really nice southern end and a really nice northern end, and the strange ambivalent middle ground, which people aren't quite sure what to do with. I love when people walk up Water Street and they're like, where do I go? What do I do here? I don't know. Hopefully this will address some of this. First off, we're pursuing the art mural along Water Street as we have been, and I'm going to circle back on Army Corps of Engineer approval in a minute. The second item, which does not require a lot of New York forward work because we as local municipality have control over this, I'd like to explore making Water Street a one-way, and it would be a one-way from the end of Lyman down towards the Mechanic Street Bridge, which means the side closest to the flood wall would become a walking lane, a painted walking lane, which would actually physically extend the greenway along that spot. Right now it's like generally there because people know that that's where it goes, but if you're not from here, you're not quite sure what to do there. The third thing, which is a big one, is to continue the existing condition of the southern and lower northern end, which has the road canvas and the shoulder stone packed down along the entire length of the levee. I spoke with Jerry about this, and he was, at first he was concerned about the idea of doing it for a lot of really good reasons, but then I explained to him suggestions that people had of why they would like to see it, and he came up with a really good way to make it about a 6-foot wide path all the way along. It's wider, so you'd still have grass on each side. You would basically just gradually dig out the whole thing, set down the canvas and the shoulder stone, and he gave me a quote already to kind of get the idea of that. The bigger ask is the Army Corps approval, which I'll come back to in a minute, but I've had some preliminary discussions with them, but oh my gosh, when you see the Section 408 application packet, it's like
Declaration.
it probably will be quicker to rewrite the Bible in handwriting. It's just going to be huge. The fourth item is a walking bridge, and that would connect the Okmulgee site to Monument Park, and Monument Park to the Greenway, which is a key thing. It really just depends on where we decide a sidewalk will go, but I'm going to come back to that in a minute. Number 5, a crosswalk at the base of the Mechanic Street Bridge, because right now there's no way to cross the road there. It's
Safely.
very, very
The Shopgate Bridge, or which bridge are we talking about?
I'll show you. I'll show you on this very,
The shop
very.
shop.
bridge.
Same
It's the shop
Where's there
bridge.
no?
So this is like a bunch of
There's
chicken
no
scratch I
crosswalk.
had to send to DOT. But this is the Mechanic Street Shop Street Bridge. This is the Greenway North, and there's nothing.
Nothing
there.
right there, yeah.
I get it.
So if
From
we
the parking
make,
lot to the.
so if we get this section right here from Okmulgee, and we make this a one-way road, so there's a walking lane all the way out to this point, then we have a crosswalk, and we have actually unified the Hoosick River Greenway, which is a pretty sweet thing.
Yeah.
And then I don't have it on this picture, but I have another picture where it's like that whole length of the levee is just grass right now, and we'd be switching the conditions. And then the sixth thing is, go back. Rebranding and improved signage. If we end up doing this, we're going to have four total access points to the Greenway. We have the southern end by the water plant. We have the new spot by Okmulgee. We're going to have the third spot across the street from the laundromat, and then we'll have the northern ends. So that's 4 distinct locations that people should be able to go up on a website, figure out how to get there, and get there. It's going to require branding, it's going to require signage, and it's going to improve a website. And that's going to tie into a lot of the efforts that Marianne's going to be going over with Hoosick Rising in terms of branding and marketing. So this application is still being developed. Let me throw it out there to any. I got to talk Army Corps. Army Corps of Engineer. They are going to need permission for changing the condition and the walking bridge. And their main concern is always about, will what we're doing change the structural integrity of the levee project, which is obviously a thing you can't do. Jerry actually thought it wouldn't be a massive weight change because you're taking out a lot of dirt that's fairly heavy as it is. You're adding more weight, but it's not a ton. Or maybe it is a ton, literally, I'm not sure, over 3/4 of a mile. But that approval is going to take time. It's going to require that Section 408 packet of information where they give you like 4 different things to read over before you start going down this road, and it will probably require some engineering to produce some technical stuff to include in that.
Is that cost worth it? I mean, what's wrong with walking on the grass line? I do it all the time. I'm telling you, all the money that's going to be going into that. What is the qualitative difference between just walking along the line?
I don't know if the cost is necessarily worth it. That's a question we have to ask. But most people who like the idea like to see the continuous nature of the material. If any track, long distance running races like through the school happen here, it has to be on consistent ground. So
Yeah,
they're
but
limited.
I think the cost, as I'm hearing it, is going to be extensive.
The cost and the research for doing that is going to be extensive. It's something that the Greenway has pursued for a while, but they also know how massive it is going to need to get permission for that. So that may be something that we scrap. No problem scrapping it, but those are kind of like, if this idea happens, then the Hoosick River Greenway is
Is the
set.
thought that the walking lane would go a long way towards at least making it look cohesive?
Yes.
In the one area where there is that gap that you
Yes.
otherwise would be considering changing the.
Yeah.
With that walking lane, you would like put like some type of a fence or rail there to protect the people from who are walking from the cars driving
Where are we talking
on
about?
Water Street. You're saying there's gonna be a walking lane.
No, that would.
It'll just be a painted
be a
walking lane
fence.
like you see in the cities.
I think a fence would
Okay.
be awful.
It's called Frogger, Bobby.
Yeah.
It's not a very busy road,
Yeah.
but it
No.
would, I think one
will
or
be.
the other would
Would
be
look
nice.
nice.
There's
you
one
know,
other item-
Something to make it look continuous.
There's one other item I forgot, but I'm probably just going to build it into rebranding and improve signage, is wayfinding for flora and fauna. Some people have requested that along the Greenway. I don't know if it'll fit, because that's along the entire Greenway, and this is kind of local, but
Is there, so just out of curiosity, the Catania property, the one that runs along the river,
yeah.
that's a whole nother, if anybody doesn't know the story, Catania, that's a whole other thing. But is there any thought about doing something with that? Because I gotta tell you, if any of you have been down there since the trees were cleared, it's really quite a beautiful.
Where are you talking?
Behind Dom's.
It's that
the
one
Catania,
property that's Catania.
Catania. It's really quite beautiful. I mean, if we were to clear that out and put a small deck going out,
all
you would
about
have a
access.
full view of the river.
Yep. It's all about property access, which we don't have, and that's a long process.
Yes, right now we don't. But
That's true. Are you signing up to call the New Jersey government? Figure out what we need to do.
yeah,
Well,
I mean,
somebody
I-
Just
suggested-
so you guys
Realtor.
know, Jack Tango passed away.
Somebody
and
suggested to me
no
that you might call
family
them.
Came forward, so there's
Tell them we're
questions
thinking
on
about
the
eminent
ownership of
domain.
properties.
And then I
He
just
was in
figured
New Jersey,
they
so
suggested
that's
I do it, but I figured you'd be much better at it.
yeah,
And they
you
may
should-
just be ready to just we don't want to deal with
You
it.
need to
You can
call
have
the
it.
probate court and you need to tell them that there are safety issues that the village
The-
has issues with.
Significant.
But I don't think that
issues.
alters the fact that I think the real problem with Catania's property is, for those of you who don't know, Mr. Catania owned those properties. He died 8 months. Nobody claimed the body, and it was buried by the Marina League. That leads me to believe that he has a truly intested estate. Like,
I
mean,
can tell you when the listings went up, I called on the property.
I did too.
And the listing had to come down because somebody
Yeah.
said that
That's
what
said that they
we
were
told
an heir, and then that
They weren't
caused
an
that
heir.
whole-
Yeah, I called the lady, and she's like, "Oh," I said, "Who's selling the property?" She said, "Mr. Catania." I said, "There's either been a second, what do they call the resurrection or whatever, or or he's come back from the
Got a
dead or
secret
something."
love
So,
child that we didn't know about.
Yeah, but you're guessing until you call the probate court.
yeah, no, I know, but I'm saying if it is a truly intestate estate where there's no living heirs, and I assume it's like New York where it goes to spouse, children, parents, brothers, whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know what happens when you get to the end. In New York State, I think it becomes a property of the state if there's,
Yeah,
if you get
except
to
right
cousins
now-
and no living relatives. So,
Yeah, but what does New Jersey want with that piece of property? And who's it
well,
called?
they don't. But I'm saying the probate process maybe. Maybe there's a certain amount of time built in for any living relative to make a claim. I
You
don't.
know what?
There
It
is,
wouldn't hurt to
there is,
ask.
and it's
Yeah.
usually a full year.
I was
New
gonna
Jersey?
guess.
I don't know New Jersey law, but
It's gonna be a
it's
process.
going
Yeah.
to be probably longer than it would make sense to have be a part of this discussion, of this grant meeting.
That's
But
not.
I would
that's-
still call them and tell them their safety issues.
Yep.
Oh,
Yeah,
Wouldn't hurt.
worth doing, but that, I think just this
Worst
is,
they could do is
I
that's
think-
an issue that the village board
I
can
think
move
his
on.
thing.
And I don't think
They don't
it's
get-
Yeah,
gonna
they'll
be
say,
relevant to
so
the
what's our
grant.
issue?
I want to move on, unless anyone had any
Yeah, I
questions,
agree.
Greenwood and
I think-
Greenway specific.
They would say that's a Hoosick Falls issue.
All right, so this
Who's it for?
project, this fourth project,
Yeah.
is another one where I have the draft application ready for review because this one I have the most documents on. This is specific to the Hall Street and Spring Street location of the Woodsbrook. Redeveloping our historic downtown and business center without further flood mitigation efforts is a recipe for past errors, putting at risk all the hard work and progress that will come with the New York Forwards program. So I have two locations. I'm going to bring up the actual application and just briefly talk through this one. This is one that comes from the second month of, my screen just went away, that's fun, of being mayor. Oh, my screen is doing some weird stuff right now. I hope my computer makes it. I have no screen. There we go. Oh, nope, it's gone. Where'd I go? Okay, hopefully this makes it. Okay. Is this the one? Okay, so there's two locations where I'm looking, where we're looking to do some improvements, park access, corridor creation. The first one is the Hall Street location where we were able to buy out these 5 properties in yellow. And our goal is where the Woodsbrook comes underneath here, runs along here, and goes underneath Hall Street. Our simple goal is to make this area much nicer looking, more efficient for flood mitigation, and put some parking and some outdoor recreation, food, a couple trees, nothing crazy here. And to take this portion of Hall Street and remove it. This would become likely parking for this building. Hall Street would only be accessible, it would no longer be one way, it'd be both directions on this side. And this would be completely opened up so that there's no choke point for waters when we have to do heavy rains. That's kind of the overall goal in this spot. I have more information on that in a minute. Spring Street, after you come out of Elm Street, where we purchased the property, this is actually behind the county building and the Chinese building, Chinese food building right there. It runs down here through this actually surprisingly beautiful looking spot that no one knows about, and it ends up at the Army Corps of Engineers, that last chute concrete culvert that heads out to the river. This is the John Street site, which will make this even more fun because that's a super fun site. Let me jump down a little bit more on this. This is the Hall Street location as it currently sits, and I did note that it exists now as a dirt and stone pile that invites unauthorized parking and junk vehicles, just so Mark would smile. This is a picture that Kenny took a couple days ago. I mean, that's in our village, and it's just sitting in the back of a
Oh,
bunch
he showed
of
it to us
properties.
today.
It's beautiful. So hopefully, the goal in this spot, I'm just going to show a couple things. This is the whole Woodsbrook watershed. It comes out from the town. This is what this is actually where SLR designed the 30% report to all these other projects that we could do. That's where this whole thing comes from. Let's see here. Redevelopment, safety, walkability, and public green space through flood mitigation efforts and corridor creation along Hall Street and Spring Street. I'm going to skip over that because this highlights what we ended up getting the funds for from New York State to make some improvements. So location 1, the 5 parcels will be there will be some excavation, sidewalk construction, ADA compliant walking bridge that will go over the open culvert where Hall Street once was. And what's interesting about this corridor is in about 9 months to a year, when Stewart's is up and running in its new location, this corridor is going to become much more important from traffic on the western side of the village eastern side heading to the western side. So this corridor will actually get, I think, a lot more traffic. The Spring Street location, this one is complicated because there's actually a village-owned and maintained bridge at the base of Spring Street when you turn left, and there's a couple houses back there. Former trustee Bobby Decker used to live back there, so he's very familiar with that bridge. So the reason this project ask is so big is because of the anticipated cost of redoing that bridge, but that also allows us to go after some different grant opportunities, including Bridge New York, with a possibility. I don't think I need to go over this stuff here. We own all the properties at Hall Street, except I do want to communicate with the property directly to the south, 119 Church Street, who owns that wall with all the railroad ties holding up the
Yep,
thing.
yep.
I'd like to work with them to obtain that parcel from them legitimately through surveys and all the other title stuff that you have to do, and that would give us even more control over this and allow us to do an even better job fixing it. Spring Street is tricky because it's a mishmash of properties back there. Some of them are county owned or in foreclosure, or they're privately owned. I was putting together some sort of thing that could help me figure out what all of these properties link up to, and it just was like a hot mess that broke my brain. This is it's on my iPad. But if you see each of those little colored parcels, those are all different parcels in that area. So there's 4 specific parcels that directly have the Woodsbrook in it, but there's other neighboring parcels there. I even think that one of our land owners who's had a couple buildings taken down may own a part of the land back there as well. So I'm still tracking that down. So that is a bigger question. I could see the location 1 being an easy green light, and I could see a lot of questions about the second location, but I'm putting them both through. The money that I'm asking for this is very high because of the bridge. I figured these numbers very high. I don't know if this number is legitimate, but that's the number they've proposed as could be the expense to remove that portion of Hall Street, which to me seems ludicrously high, but I don't know this stuff. I figured another $750,000 for that bridge replacement, so that's why this number is so high. I don't necessarily know or think it will stay that high, but that's kind of the big ask for it. So that's the quick version of this project. Any questions on this one? Awesome. So the last project before I turn over to Marianne is in its very basic form. It's a pedestrian infrastructure improvements. The overall goal is to find within the New York Forward area some old and outdated crosswalks, replacing ADA compliant ramps, possibly improving some traffic flow or cleaning up our sidewalks. I'm still in the process of finding all the spots and targeting them, so this is going to be the last one that comes together for us. It's not a particularly hard one, it's just a matter of getting pictures, deciding which spots are the biggest priority.
So is the original around the Lyman Street, is that still, we proposed that between Unihog and
Oh,
Sandbar
I'm
and
so
Blake?
sorry. Thank you. I completely forgot
Right,
one
about
big
one
key
way,
of
right,
the
we're
last. I completely forgot about like the big part of the Spring Street projects. There was a question about a walk. Let me go back to the opening picture. There was a question about an effective walkway right here. Now there's this is depending on what site you look at. This is Railroad Avenue and this is Lyman. Or this is Lyman and this is Railroad,
Yeah.
or if
Railroad. Let's
you
not-
go by building addresses, they're all off. I mean, like this one here, which isn't even connected to John Street, whatever. It's just a hot mess. There's 2 street lights along here. We do have local control over making this a one-way and adding a sidewalk or adding a lane. The other thing I had proposed was actually, this is the base of Spring Street right here, and this is where the bridge is. I proposed making a sidewalk to continue on down here, cross over the Woodsbrook in a footbridge, and over and meet up over here, and that would give a nice walking corridor along our beautiful Woodsbrook that would link to some spots in the county.
But along Railroad, that was a key piece. Everybody agreed to have lighting there for safety purposes because of the traffic that goes out between.
Right.
And I think even the state folks, when they walked, they were concerned about there's no barrier between
So yeah,
the road and the
It's very
railroad
narrow
itself.
as it is. It's
That
narrow
will-
enough as it is.
I'd like to investigate that as a possible one-way. I'd like to see a sidewalk or at least at minimum additional street
And we
poles.
said lighting
Yep.
too.
Yeah, we
So that
definitely
will be
just wanna
part of the
make-
pedestrian
Yeah. It's dark.
infrastructure improvements.
Can that
And
be
the
added
second
to the
piece,
streetlight
because I-
project?
I'm sure. I'm adding.
What's that?
Dan asked if we could add lights to the project.
The streetlight project.
It's
I think we still can.
we still can for sure because I just added. He asked about the receptacles into the poles, downtown poles. We wanted to put 24/7 electricity rather than just nighttime electricity.
So yes,
I just
Railroad
didn't give him the
Avenue.
pole numbers.
I'm just gonna call it Railroad Avenue. Lighting will be part of that.
And then I know Trish had to leave, but she wanted me to mention, I guess she mentioned this in the LPC meeting about a sidewalk between Hoosick Provisions and Sandbar with lighting. Because there's not a sidewalk all the way
Okay.
down.
No,
There's
it's
not.
it's a mess and it's a curb cut for three buildings that
Right,
are
you have the
there.
Haka, right? Isn't it right there? And there's a curb cut for that too, right?
Yeah, well, that's a huge driveway and, right, but they're, it's,
Okay. What are our other really bad spots that we have 88 compliant ramps are out.
Well, the whole corridor down back of, on Lower Classic Street or
Classic Street
something.
is horrible.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
that was a major priority around corridors
Yeah.
and development on both buildings on both sides and.
If we get funding that we expect to create a universal access entry for woodblock,
Mhm.
it will be where the old carriageway was on the west end of the building.
Let me
And
bring that map up again.
we'll be able to link Classic Street straight through to John Street.
Where am I?
At the same time, it provides our new entry.
Can you explain that again?
So
Woodblock
the-
building.
The furthest west end of the woodblock building.
I
Right.
know where the barber shop is?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was originally a
Oh,
through
further back.
passageway.
Right here.
And in,
Oh,
at this
Where
point
the nearest
in our
barbers.
planning,
Yeah.
it would become our
Yeah.
entryway
Yes, yes.
and have access on both ends.
Okay, that's fantastic.
So that people shopping on John Street can pass over, through to Classic Street.
Yep.
Where the Saluzzo building is starting to look
Yep.
starting
Yep.
to look amazing.
So this is the sidewalk that's the
Yeah.
focus
Seen that?
plus
Got
lighting.
rid of that texture 111 green.
Sidewalk and
painted.
lighting, and
God, best panel,
there's
man.
a hot mess of utility wires that are
Okay.
just, how much of it belongs to, it's various owners of buildings.
Oh,
that-
yeah.
It's just, it's like,
You're talking on Classic in that
Classic.
little old
Oh,
cove,
yeah.
that
Lower
old cove in there
Classic
with the
and-
poles up. Yeah,
that pole.
it's been like that forever.
The pole has
Yeah, I
been
know.
like
All right.
there for 100 years.
Yeah, and that was a priority corridor, the proposal
Yep.
that we submitted. So,
That was in our
Yeah.
Yeah.
original proposal.
The other thing about Lower Classic Street is, the apartment buildings along there that Janet's building and then up.
Mhm.
First of all, I think Janet's putting in to redo the back
Facade.
of her building, which would be great because those
Okay.
buildings look terrible. But all the trash cans from all the apartments, there's 2 trash cans per apartment on that street,
Oh, yeah.
are sitting on the street. It looks disgusting like New York City. So
Yeah.
we need to, not that all New
They
York
just
City
started
is
putting
disgusting,
trash
but that
cans
part
in
is.
there,
Parts.
just the bags.
But no, so I don't know. We have to think about that
Okay.
because it's going to look nice except for trash cans.
So
Yeah.
Janet has brought up repeatedly, the flat roof drains for those lower buildings.
There you go.
Drain to the street
That's what
and
she emailed me
freeze
about.
all winter long. And so they need to drain to a culvert which needs to go underneath that road. So that culvert project should be part of your, sidewalk or something.
Is there? Are there storm sewers on here?
I was just gonna ask that. They can drain to the storm sewer.
Oh, that's interesting.
There's
Okay.
one at the top, the corner of Main and Classic, but there's nothing down.
At the bottom.
Down the street, no.
And it's
So-
a hill. So
So-
One of the high
Okay.
points.
Goes into the laundry.
It's not the high point, but that's a little.
Another idea that actually a former board member brought up was, and it was an idea of trying to make this whole intersection here better. His proposal was to extend out this sidewalk to run further even with this to allow for better visibility and more anticipation. I didn't quite understand it and I was on vacation and wasn't able to go on site. Remember I forwarded that to
Yeah.
you and Kenny? That's another thing I'm going to look at. It would have to lose a parking spot.
yeah.
and possibly relocate a crosswalk, but it may be worth it if it makes
The
this
crosswalk thing's done
spot
pretty
better.
fast.
Well, you wouldn't have to relocate the crosswalk, would you? You can just keep it there, it's just gonna be narrower.
Be shorter.
Right.
Well, it's not even in the
Or
right
extend it
spot.
out further.
weird spot.
You got
It's
a
a
lot
very
of
weird
trucks,
spot for that crosswalk.
big trucks come through there too.
Yes, but
Narrows the
this is
street.
not Route 22 right here, so
No.
the village could decide to move it and paint
wouldn't
it.
be
That
any
is
more
local
narrow
control.
If there was a car parked there.
Any other things
Right.
within the pedestrian infrastructure improvement you want to make sure are in here? I have, beside the other stuff I've mentioned, the railroad avenue lights, the sidewalk by Provisions and Sandbar with lighting. Lower Classic Street is a hot mess for 1,000 different reasons, and including a storm sewer drain necessary there.
I would add that the pedestrian walkway should be going to where that barber shop is, because that's the alleyway between Bite, which would connect the municipal parking lot, which was in our original plans, and before we even acquired the building, we were looking into parking for the woodblock building, because the woodblock building has a potential of having large numbers of people upstairs. Where do they park? So you have the municipal parking lot, you have an alley that goes to Bite, and you would want to have a crosswalk, which would not necessarily be, it doesn't have to be operating during the day. It could light up at night. when
You talking
have
about
a
right here?
performance. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
I will tell you in my conversations with the DOT, there is a permit you'd have to go through to get that because of the state, but I don't think it's a huge deal.
No.
It was the same question. I think I forgot to mention this, but I had actually proposed. Oh no, it's in this one. There's no good crosswalk coming out of this parking lot.
There isn't a crosswalk
at all.
No.
If you're leaving this parking lot and you want to go here, you have to go all the way up
Another guy
to
walking
here.
across the street in front of me.
Or
today.
all the
No,
way
you're
down.
just jaywalking.
And the DOT person was like, "Wow, you guys just must have jaywalking in there all the time." Yep. So we're
We can clean up
building
if we
in
charge for that.
a proposal to build in a crosswalk, probably in this section, so that if you're parking here and coming out of here, you have a natural spot to cross to the other side of the road.
Right.
For a bazillion reasons, but I just think of mothers and strollers wanting to come over here for numerous good reasons. I mean, what a terrible thing to have to ask them to walk a block all the way up here and then have to cross through this section. Ugh.
Or to go down,
Or
or,
go
or cross
all the
by
way
the
down
armory.
and down back.
Right.
Go to
Yes.
Little Sprouts.
Exactly.
Women
yeah.
in strollers at Little Sprouts.
Yes, exactly.
Does this still have the old Elks? Oh, is that what that does?
No.
No.
Yes.
Yes, it does.
Yes, it
Yeah.
does.
Yeah.
Oh wait a minute! I thought that was.
There's
okay,
the old Elks.
Yeah.
Old Cumberland Farms.
Oh yeah, and this one's still there. Yeah,
Where's the green car?
and this one's still there. Wow.
It's on the front porch of the building.
Yeah.
It is there.
But the woodblock building's roof looks much better.
Yes, it does.
We're talking about
In its
crosswalks
present
there.
iteration.
Wow,
There
that's
needs to be one
So-
between the parking lot and Great Wall, because nobody walks down to the Armory and crosses over.
what's it
They
got
park
for?
and go right across the
Yeah.
parking lot and Great Wall.
Absolutely, so do the seniors.
Has it got an empty spot for
Right here?
And
parking
it's
or what?
dangerous there.
Yeah.
Yep. The reason
No,
I
down-
found out the
No,
reason
it's
why.
Down part of it,
Yeah, right
there it
there.
is, right
Isn't
there.
there one by the senior center?
Well, there's
Yeah, right
one.
there.
It's right here.
No, I thought there
Yeah,
was
yeah.
one.
No,
No.
there's not another.
So
one.
I found out the reason why. I didn't realize this, and as soon as you said it, I realized it's 100% true. The only crosswalks exist at corners.
Yes.
That's exactly it, and that's why this entire stretch of 22 has no crosswalks because there's no corners. There's a corner, corner.
But
So
that's
Well, it's kind
that's
of a
required
corner
that
by,
they have to be at corners.
by Jim and Jim's
I think
building.
that's just why they decided to do it easily there. But for whatever reason, they missed an obvious one. At minimum, right here.
Yeah.
I could see another one, right around here as well. So we're looking into that.
Same with the junky ADA
So,
crosswalks they put in.
That's the pedestrian infrastructure improvement.
We
I'll
need to
have
fix that.
a more
My
rounded
wife's
number
wheelchair
in
gets stuck.
time for
Oh,
the
yeah.
application.
The
to
front
go in.
wheel. It's-
Mary, I'm going to pass this over to you to discuss not the pedestrian infrastructure improvements. I'm just going to close this out. You tell me which documents you want me to put up there, and I will go for it.
Why don't we put up the project description and cost projection.
All
Rob,
right.
I gotta get going. Is there anything? We have a
I'll be
quorum.
in Bennington by 8 o'clock to pick
We're
my
not
wife
making
up.
any decisions, are we?
We're
Yeah,
not. No, it's
There's-
just getting feedback.
And you still have a quorum. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yep. Yes, I will tell you from my sit down with Marianne, this is like ridiculously awesome what she's going to be proposing here.
So it's a $300,000 ask, because that is actually what New York Forward has set aside for the rebranding and marketing for the village. And this just is the explanation of why we would like to see the funds. If you just,
Oop, not it.
Yeah, I got it.
I'm getting the other ones ready to go.
Okay, super. You can go down further. So we started with a group of Hoosick Rising people and went through a vision of how do you know to come here once you get here? You know, where do you turn? How do you know you're here? Once you get here, what do you do? Kind of thing.
Yep.
So the first thing we asked for was a billboard on Route 7. And the billboard statistics from the company, there's 50,000 heads that pass that billboard every single week traveling east on Route 7. And that billboard is about $1,300 a month right now. I projected more than that. I put in the estimate for more than that. It will probably change by next year.
And this will be at the Hill Road Big Moose intersection, right?
No, the billboard is, excuse me, where the barbecue place was. At the beginning of, if you're heading east, it's at the top of Tibbetts Forest.
The old
Right
Moose
where
Deli.
you, right where you have to slow down because you know you're entering Tibbetts Forest. There's a billboard right there. So it's the most seen. We've been looking at it for years for Hoosick Rising, and it's the most seen billboard on Route 7 heading east. So anyway, that would be put in their mind constantly for 2 years that the village does have something to offer.
There's way more people going that direction than the other direction?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, more heading east than
Yeah, but eventually have to go.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Oh, yeah.
Except on Sundays, they're all driving west.
yeah, well, yeah.
Oh man.
Right.
Is it
Martin
just-
Luther
Or
King
Monday
Day
holiday,
weekend,
Monday holiday, yeah.
MLK weekend, or
Yeah.
President's Day.
So the next thing we really would like to, now some people are gonna turn on 22, which they might, but the nicest route into the village is via Hill Road. So putting a sign out, that green space right where the Moose Cafe is, or whatever he calls himself, at the corner across from Seifert's, that's owned by the town.
Place with a lot of stuff.
And Hoosick Rising has previously gotten permission from the town to put up
Moose.
a sign
Yep.
directing
Right there.
people
Seifert's.
to the village, down Hill Road, which brings them right in Main Street. And it's really beautiful.
It's a beautiful spot to enter the village.
Yeah. And the next that sign will probably cost in the $5,000 range. Design and manufacturing of that sign will be about $5,000. There will be 4 knee-high / waist-high 3x5 signs, which would welcome people into the village. It would be 2-sided, so we'll also say thank you for visiting on the other side. The village is very small. We want people to know when they're leaving so they don't go too far.
Missed it.
Right. Turn around. So those ran about $3,800 a piece, 2-sided. That is a carved polyurethane type sign, so there's no disintegration of the sign. There's okay, Wood Park.
I got it.
Okay.
This is like the one I'm the most excited about out of everything.
Okay, so
I
this-
love this so much.
These are the 2 remaining stone pillars which held the large iron gates to the Wood Estate. So this is the drive into the Wood Estate, and anyway, what we would like to do is replace it with a iron structure, similar to this. Doesn't have to be that, this is not necessarily the design we chose, but this is the, idea.
Yeah.
You mean add to or replace?
No, these will go next to the stone stanchions that still sit there. It'll have to be high enough for the tractors and everything else that we use the park for.
Eventually, we could put one at the Tilly Park too, kind of matching one would be.
Oh,
Yeah.
I love that.
So I found a company that can manufacture them in New York State on Lake Geneva, and they pretty much design anything we want for between $30,000 or $50,000, depending on how complicated the design is.
That's just designing.
To design it or to build it?
Build it.
Okay, okay. I thought you meant just.
No. No. My design estimates are not quite what the village got.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
All right, and then there are other projects further on down. So, removing the mass majority of the signage in the village, the incorrect parking signage, all the extra signage that is
You
here.
don't like all the confusing parking signs?
Well, it
We
just
don't
needs
either.
to be
I know a
set
guy
up.
we can get to.
Because if
straighten it
we're
out.
gonna add signage, it just can't be
Did you
signage
for
on top
highway
of
department?
signage.
Yes.
Is
Yes.
that nothing but complaint?
So, what we'd like to do to streamline the whole parking thing is go to the universal P. It's a blue P. And, they're only like 6 by 6, and they fit pretty much on any sign you want it to fit on. And, if you're looking for parking, you see them, and if you're not looking for parking, they just kind of disappear, because they're small and innocuous. Probably about 20 of those. I still don't have an estimate from the highway department on that. The street signs in the historic district, we would like to change to historic looking sign. I believe they used to be cast iron, now they're made out of cast aluminum, but
The standard New York
Stanchions.
format, the ones the state education department did in the 30s,
I don't know.
the blue and gold.
No, this is actually street signage. So we're talking about, this is black and white.
Well,
I know,
But
exactly.
it could be
Yeah.
white and black. Standardly, they're either black and white or white and black.
That's what it used to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're
great idea.
stamped
My street.
Little things.
aluminum,
corner.
and then they're clad, and they're put on an aluminum black pole.
Yeah, me too.
With a little ball on top again,
Taking my
Thanks, guys.
I'll relay what you guys said.
Yes, sorry.
painted.
No, all good.
I'm gonna sneak out.
In areas where we no longer have posts, what we would be doing is putting them directly on the buildings so that the trucks could no longer knock down the signs. So you're talking about mostly Church Street, John Street, Main Street. They would all go on the buildings directly.
Classic Street too, right? Because that's gonna
Right,
look nice.
Classic Street.
Yeah.
That is about a $10,000 estimate. I just got in later this afternoon. I already talked about the sign on Hill Road. It's listed twice. I have to fix that. So we're now down to the mural, which is on the back of Deb's building. It's a second story blank space of brick, which faces the entire parking lot and is high enough to see from the entire parking lot that would direct people to walk through that alleyway to.
Right here, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, the same alleyway that's gonna go through to the wood.
Yeah,
Right.
that little
Wood
second
lot.
story piece will direct people to walk through that alleyway to access the shops, eateries, and anything else.
Yeah, we just have to make sure that dumpster is enclosed or stays not the way it is right now.
And the building owner has to agree with this.
Yeah.
They don't answer phone calls, so we
I
can
was
just
gonna
do it.
say,
They'll never know.
and what is your experience with your landlord?
They'll never know.
Graffiti.
We can make it look like it was already on the building and they won't even.
Well, that is,
I'm telling you, they won't know. They've had water leaking. They've had water leaking behind from upstairs.
So
behind
anyway,
the iron shop
that'll be
for
about
like years.
$3,000.
They don't care. What is
Adding
expensive in this town?
solar to signs of importance which need to be lit at night is about $100 a sign. We guessed 5 signs, only the 4 entryway signs and then the village hall sign. There might be more than that in the end, it's not a lot. Lighting the falls under the bridge.
I like that.
That we really aren't sure because even though they've given us all the information, I can't read the estimate well enough to figure out
It makes no
Actually,
sense.
how much it will actually cost. I mean, they gave me a lot of,
this is what we call the shop bridge.
Yes.
Yes.
this is the shop bridge.
Actually, this is going to be discussed. It's not. This is the bridge. This is a separate thing, but this is the bridge.
Okay, so that is, that's a patch that the village owns that is all now juniper. And so we're gonna rip out all the juniper and put in Hoosick Falls and flowers. Now, not quite that, Jerry McAuliffe came up with an estimate, it's about $15,000. And he'll rip out the juniper, he'll have to dig it out, we'll have to bring in topsoil. It'll spell out Hoosick Falls, probably in a metal rimmed frame. And then he's gonna fill in with stone around that so that we don't have to physically plant that, because the cost of flowers to plant that every single year will be huge. So we'll only be actually putting the words Hoosick Falls in flowers.
So that would require an expansion of the area, designated area.
No, at the last meeting, they expanded the area to the other side of the bridge. Yep.
Yep. Also, just as a fun fact, that parcel does not exist as a parcel. It's just part of the road,
Oh,
but
okay.
that means we have control.
Okay.
It's very weird to see no parcel there.
So the underneath of the bridge will be lit to the water, so the lights we want to shine down on the water, changeable colors so that we can do something creative for holidays and whatnot. I'm guessing it's gonna be about $50,000 to light the underneath.
Ken,
That looks-
I'm concerned that you've well spent the $300,000. So I'm wondering, is there anything in there like that that could be moved over to some of the public improvements rather than
How
under
close
the
are you
branding?
going?
Because
Most
branding
of
is
it's low
limited
ticket.
to
Not.
300.
Yeah, most of our stuff's been low ticket items, so I'd be
Yeah,
shocked.
I'm not really. There's 2, and if you go the most amount on the iron thing, and I'm guessing on the bridge, that's $100,000, and everything else altogether doesn't add up to another 100.
Including getting a branding company.
Oh, see, the branding company, I have no idea how much money
It'd
they
be about
need.
50,000.
Yeah. That's why you guys have a much better handle on how much it is to hire those kinds of people.
I'm just saying, if there's anything here
Yep.
that could be pulled out of branding and put into the other improvements or streetscape stuff, because there's not the limitation there that you have with that cap.
Right.
So
Like I feel like you're.
the original grant request was for 200,000, but now for some reason 300,000 is already
I think
been assigned to
300.
this,
I think
or-
300 is the amount that they allow. Am I correct about that?
I thought so.
Yeah, I think it's 300 is that they allow.
Oh, so you can only go up to 300,000.
Yeah.
Okay. And we only went up to 2 in the original ask.
I think that was one of the many things that changed
Yeah.
as the project
I
evolved.
guess.
And then there's
Okay.
the 300,000 small project fund, which would be from the village. Should we get a proposal in for that? And I don't know if the projects have to be included or some of these things could be considered small projects. There's a $300,000
Yeah, small project
locally
was anything
managed.
under 75.
Under 75.
Huh? Did
small,
they say that?
Small
That-
project was under 75,000.
Okay, so could some of these be under
Right, you
75?
could break some of those up.
That's
Yeah.
a good point.
I'm
I
just
could
thinking-
probably take the bridge out of this,
And put that
because
under.
technically it's real, I mean, I
a
consider
public
it marketing,
project.
because I think it would pull people in. But it wouldn't have to be a marketing thing.
But is that money, just as a partnership, all this money we're talking about coming through the village rather than Hoosick Rising?
I don't know. I mean, that's gonna be their decision on who.
No, it's our decision for putting an application in.
Well,
Well-
I put down, I justified, I put down that Nikon is willing and able to handle.
That'd be on the Hoosick Rising now, not the.
That would be if Hoosick Rising got the funds
For all this.
for the marketing and the branding. Yeah.
But no, I think it may be worth us talking tomorrow about trying to move some of this to small project funds to make more space for
Yeah.
Okay.
branding.
Because I think once you get into it, you're gonna find more stuff, and
I think the Mechanic Street bridge lighting could be a small project. I think the iron entryway into the wood park could be a small project that will pull a healthy chunk out of this for branding. And I feel like the flowers that Jerry gave you the quote on could be built into the pedestrian infrastructure that we're doing, but then that's also going to get pretty big pretty fast. We'll circle back tomorrow.
Okay.
kind of streetscape stuff.
Yeah. This stuff is so exciting. It's so exciting. So that's kind of a general bit of everything. Trustees, I've gotten 2 drafts. It'll take me about 20 to 30 minutes to kind of go through and just double check language, and then I'll be pretty content. If anyone wants to take on 1, 2, 3, 4 applications and start going through it and suggesting any changes, I'm game for that. Absolutely game for that. And also, like we've discussed, all of these things are going to be able to change over time, especially as we get more information on this.
I can do some reading.
That would be great.
I think we have, so we all understand it, the village puts in its public proposals, the private sector, both businesses and nonprofits put in their proposals. Sounds like it's gonna be more than $6 million, we'll probably have 7 or 8, we may be asked, and I know you can't make a decision on that, and I can't in the process, to prioritize, once we know what this package is as it goes down the road.
Oh yeah, I mean, I could see some of our application asks changing. I could see, I mean, the LPC at the end of the day is going to have to decide the priority on all this stuff as a recommendation to the state, and the state will make the decisions. And we'll have to step out of whatever conversations that we're involved in as village board members. Any other questions, comments, thoughts?
I'm just gonna, I know this is sort of banging my head against a wall, but that Catania property and access from Main Street down to the water, I think is not something we should just say, oh, that's way in the back. Because I think it's hugely important to the development of the community to have that immediate access. You don't have to find the north end, you don't have to find the south end, you're in the freaking middle of the village. Yeah. You're shopping in the freaking middle of the village.
It brings the river into the...
Exactly.
Yep, into
exactly.
the... Yep.
And I mean, every time we talk about woodblock and the community and bringing people to the woodblock, bringing people to Classic Street, bringing people to John Street, and it would make that the greenways could be such a tremendous attraction for people if we just let people get to it as quickly as possible.
So if the village got control of that, what would you want to see done in that property?
I mean, it's unfortunately not a universal accessible thing because it's going to have to go down that hill.
Yeah.
But
we talked about
it would have to be stairs, landing, stairs, landing.
And then you could have a switchback for wheelchairs.
Yeah, and I think actually Craig Kennedy did work something up a couple years ago.
Yes, there was something done for the LWRP during that whole period. There is there's a Northeast Waterfront grant, something like that, NE something, and I did an online tutorial for how to apply for that grant. And I had to drop it when we didn't own the property. So, and that was like 5 years ago. But there is money there. I mean, so if you can get a hold of that property, you can write another grant there is money there. It's only available in the Northeast for waterfront communities.
And it's you're making another good point that everything doesn't have to be New York Forward. There could be access to other resources that the state is telling.
Yes.
that we
And,
can-
and they pretty much said if you get, once you get a big grant like
Yeah.
this, you
Yeah.
can get others, so.
And
We
So,
feel
I agree,
those-
we need to keep that in the vision.
And that is something that they'll, everybody's looking at New York Forward, that they wanna see, where are you finding your funding from that isn't sucking out of New York Forward? Where are you
Right.
finding matches for that? And just saying, we know of this very discrete funding source that's
Yep.
perfect for this. Now, I know the probate thing in the state of New Jersey is gonna be a bear, but I think what excites me the most about, sort of the classic street civic care part of this project is bringing that river up to Main Street and Main Street down to the river.
Does that waterfront allow you to pay to acquire the property?
No, you have to own the property already, and it's matching, but your matching funds can be in kind. So if you used your highway department to do some of the work, that value
oh, that's good.
would be
Would
usable.
come in.
Well, I
as
was
a-
going back to thinking, there's the other property that's privately owned. That's for sale if you want, right?
Oh, yeah, no, you have to already own it. The municipality has to own it.
But there could be other funds to purchase that. If you
Yeah.
had it, if you had it, you can accomplish this probably a lot faster than you can waiting for the Antonio property.
Yeah.
Who owns it? The,
Billy
Billy, yeah.
Oh, where are we talking?
That
next
other
to
mode
Snoozers.
patch, yeah.
This right here?
Oh, yeah, that's a
It's
nice
owned by
piece of
Billy.
property. It's
It is.
taken care of.
Yeah.
It also begs the question, is that grant money available for the Oakmont property? Because that butts up to the waterway for
And you do
hundreds
own
of
it.
feet.
Yeah.
And you do
Oh,
own it.
yeah.
You own it already.
All
Yeah.
right, so I'm not a native.
And it's confusing.
What is
Billy
that?
Wyman.
Billy Wyman, the guy who owns the laundromat.
He owns the laundromat over here.
So Catania is up here.
Yeah.
Yes.
Catania, this is actually 3 separate
Yeah, it's 3
lots,
lots.
and then
Alright.
there's one long lot to about there. It's
There we go.
4
Okay.
parcels,
Okay.
and it's owned by the
Deceased.
former, the now deceased Jack Catania.
Okay.
And
Alright.
to Mary Ann Zwickelbauer's point,
Very
I don't know why I decided to use your last name in that moment, but I did. You're all familiar with the black sidewalk here. The black sidewalk exists because underneath here it has been undermined to the point where it's getting to Route 22. And we've told DOT that there's a likely, going to be a crisis when all of a sudden this road caves in right here and we can't use 22 in one direction. And they're like,
And there's a big semi truck going down here.
it's not here yet, so we're...
There's no good detour around
No, there is not. There is not.
That was found out a couple years ago.
that. You
When
gotta go all the way back.
Harder
to
Lane.
Bridge. Harder
Go
Lane.
through the wrong way and Harder Lane.
Can you imagine them going up Abbott and down Wilder with those trucks? Oh.
That's the closest detour you have, though. Which is
Yeah.
not feasible. But
No, it's not.
That's the
It's
closest
awesome.
detour you have.
Yeah.
Which
So.
isn't even close. But
All right. Any other questions? Comments? Thoughts? All right. In that case,
Thank you.
would someone like to do a motion to adjourn?
I'm-
All right. I don't know who did it. One of you did it. The other one did it. All in favor?
I think Doug did both.
Aye. Opposed or abstentions? Okay, we are officially adjourned at 7:54 p.m. Thank you, everybody.